Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we have some rather exciting news. Games Workshop have finally just dropped some new information regarding Warhammer the Old World, more specifically that of Bretonnia, and they've also added in some heraldry for the Wood Elves, with a small High Elf conclave also added very close to the nation of Bretonnia itself. What you're seeing right now is the new updated map for Warhammer the Old World, and there's a lot to discuss here. First, let's look towards the Brutonians. It seems Bretonnia has been changed dramatically. As you can see, the Bretonnia that we all know obviously is now, 500 years into the past? But you can see that geographically it's also changed, with many of the heraldries also changing too. With Games Workshop specifically stating that even though many of the Bretonian cities are no doubt familiar to us, the names and the lords who command each province are brand new. This obviously makes sense as it's set in the past, but the heraldry itself changing is a bit different. It seems that they're changing the timeline a little bit. The interesting change here would be that of Leon Orcslayer, who rules in this current timeline as the current king. For those not aware, Leon Orcslayer was alive around 100 years before Magnus the Pious's reign, and it looks like we are starting before Magnus the Pious himself. So it can be expected that we'll see some sort of mixing of timeline. Remember, it's also important to note that Grail Knights do live a lot longer, as they have been blessed by the Lady with unnatural lifespans. By this, we can more or less speculate that the timeline will be set around near the end of the Age of Free Emperors. That technically started around 1500 of the Imperial calendar, and Magnus the Pious began around 2300 of the Imperial calendar. This gives me reason to believe that we're going to be having a similar format to that of the Horus Heresy. We'll start around 100 years before, and time will progress as expansions and books are released. That more or less puts us around 300 years before the timeline of Total War Warhammer and Warhammer Fantasy 8th edition. There is a lot of time that Games Workshop has to play through this, which means that Old World could be quite a long-lasting series. Now, we also have two icons for the Wood Elves, one in Athaloran and one in the Forest of Arden. Of course, this means that the Wood Elves are pretty much confirmed, which we more or less guessed anyway. But it's rather interesting to note that we will be getting a separate faction up north in the Forest of Arden. We are aware some Wood Elves do pretty much settle there, but I'm assuming as time progresses, we will also see some new forms of heraldry and so on, which means new paint schemes and possibly army effects. There's not a lot of Wood Elf territories in the Warhammer Fantasy world, so it makes sense for these two factions to be close to each other. I only hope that this isn't the only Wood Elves though. We are aware, in older lore at least, we can't really say that this is current until we see what's going on with the full world map, that there are many other Wood Elf territories littered around the Old World and pretty much the whole Warhammer Fantasy world. You'll also notice there's a bunch of greenskin icons on the Bretonnia map, which makes sense, they've always been a thorn in their side. More specifically, up north there are a bunch of greenskin icons. And this is important because at least we know that Greenskins will come to play. It could be likely that we'll see a Bretonnia versus Greenskins box. Something like that would be rather interesting and would fit the lore rather well. These are locations that we know Greenskins inhabit. The Pale Sisters, the Grey Mountains, and interestingly enough, Massive Orcal has no greenskins. It could be just a story setting where a massive war is gathering up north in the Pale Sisters to wreak havoc upon Bretonnia. Now, what you will also notice is that on the western portion of the map, right next to the Great Ocean, you will see a High Elf icon. This is rather important, as that means that very likely we'll start seeing High Elves being introduced too. They have mentioned the fact that there are High Elf enclaves all over the region. Of course, we couldn't expect the Old World without races far away from the Old World. That leads people to speculate that we will indeed get the full world map. especially seeing as Games Workshop go out of their way to claim that the Isles of Ulthuan had colonies and glittering port cities on every continent, even mentioning the Tower of the Rising Sun in the east and the Citadel of Dusk in the west. I believe this is very much a hint in regards to the fact that we might see a complete full world map, with the possibility that a lot of new races and factions that have never been fully represented in Warhammer Fantasy making an appearance in the future. More specifically, if you want to look to the far east, the Tower of the Rising Sun is very much close to empires such as Nippon and Cathay, but we'll talk about that in a future video. The High Elves were easy to implement with this, as obviously they have the enclaves everywhere, but I'm assuming that they'll start working down south next and eventually move on to continents such as Lustria. This is rather interesting information. So far we are aware that Kislev will be a playable faction, the Empire, Bretonnia, and obviously if we can see these iconographies on the map, it's pretty much easy enough to confirm that the Greenskins, the Elves of Athaloran, and the Elves of Ulthuan have now also been confirmed. This was a rather big information dump to celebrate the end of the year. I think Games Workshop have given us exactly what we wanted to know, especially with so many months of silence. What do you think about these possible changes to the lore? And are you excited about the confirmation of basically 4 new races for this game? Well, they're not really new, but then again, it's something that we've been waiting for a while for official confirmation. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion. But with that, my friends, we've come to the end of our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, might I suggest giving the video a like, or even subscribing to the channel, as it really does help us out. In the description section below are various links to different social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. Also in the description section is an affiliate link with Element Games where you could buy loads of hobby-based products, not just Warhammer, for 10 to 25% off. Making a purchase using that link and also our special code, which is also in the description, supports the channel at no extra cost to you, which we think is rather cool. A big thank you to our patrons. Your support means the world to us. It's amazing that people want to help a small channel like us grow and get to a higher level of content. A big thank you to Gibraltar LUSC, Ryan Bertsche, Andrew Prince, and Okro for subscribing to us at our Fane level. You guys are super cool. And a big thank you to Edward Yule, VS Vasan, Aaron Whitman, and Shaggy for subscribing to us at our King level. Honestly, we can't thank you all enough. And lastly, a big thank you to all of you for liking, sharing, and commenting on these videos. Honestly, it's because of you guys that the channel's been growing at such a great pace lately, so we can't thank you all enough. But with that, my friends, thank you so much for watching once again, and we shall see you all again very, very soon. Have a good day.